Alright guys, so here we are. You're going to be following along with this lesson via video today. The hope is that this allows you to stop and start and kind of go at your own pace. So you really get the big picture of what pauses are all about. We're going to start with our notes. So we're talking about a short pause. Remember, you're filling in everything in red on your notes. So a short pause, it normally lasts from half a second to about 3 seconds. You use it normally to separate thoughts or sentences, to emphasize the last word you said, or to build anticipation for what's coming. It just depends really on what you're saying. So the example of this that I have is this, my friends, is going to be a great day. You'll notice I paused, obviously, when it said pause at both points. Take a moment, pause the video yourself, and try saying that quietly to yourself. Take a second, really though. Pause it. If you haven't paused it yet, pause. Alright, good deal. Now you're back. The next type of pause is a spontaneous pause. It normally lasts for 2 or more seconds. It really just depends. This is when the speaker is searching for the right word. They could be pretending to also reflect on something or think about something. This can actually be planned out. Sometimes speakers do this to make their speech seem natural and like it's not super rehearsed. It also can happen if you're unplanned and like you lose your train of thought. I do this all the time in class, right? I kind of lose where I am and I pause and I'm like, right, this is what I was going to say. So it wasn't necessarily intentional sometimes, but these are really great to plan out, especially when you're a more advanced public speaker and you want your speech to seem more natural. An example of this would be, let me see if I remember. Oh, yes, now I remember. Go ahead and pause and see if you can say that to yourself with the actual pause in place. All right, now we are on to the last pause. It's called a pseudo pause. It's like a regular pause, except the speaker would repeat or restate their last sentence to emphasize it. It really helps your listeners absorb what you're being told. So it's really to emphasize a key point. You'll see in debates and speeches, people repeat themselves all the time. But this is, you want to repeat it like right after you say it, right? So for extra emphasis. I sometimes do that in class. If I really want you to get something, I'll say it more than once, maybe even 2 or 3 times. So when you use it, I think I just said this, but you use it when you want the audience to remember something. An example of this is here. The time is now, people. The time is now. Pause it here. Say that to yourself. Of course, you can put your own pitch with it, but make sure you include the pause. What we're going to do now is we are going to actually listen to a podcast. We're going to listen to about 2.5 minutes. And you're going to listen to the pausing that happens. But before that happens, I want to kind of explain the podcast. The podcast is called Serial. This is the 2nd season that we're going to listen to. And we're going to listen to the very first episode at the very beginning. So if you read along with me, or you can read the 3 paragraphs that are on this slide. In May 2014, a U.S. Special Operations team in a Black Hawk helicopter landed in the hills of Afghanistan. While waiting for them were more than a dozen Taliban fighters and a tall American who looked pale and out of sorts. Bo Bergdahl. Bergdahl, a U.S. soldier, had been a prisoner of the Taliban for nearly 5 years, and now he was going home. President Obama announced Bergdahl's return in the Rose Garden, with the soldier's parents at his side. Bergdahl's hometown of Haley, Idaho, planned a big celebration to welcome him back. But then, within hours of his rescue, in fact, public reaction to his return flipped. People started saying Bergdahl shouldn't be celebrated. Some of the soldiers from his unit called him a deserter, a traitor. They said he had deliberately walked off their small outpost in eastern Afghanistan and into hostile territory. The town of Haley canceled its celebration. The army launched an investigation. Finally, in March, the military charged Bergdahl with 2 crimes, one of which carries the possibility of a life sentence. Through all of this, Bergdahl has been quiet. He hasn't spoken to the press or done any interviews on TV. He's been like a ghost at the center of a raucous fight. I hope I said that word right. So, what you are going to do, I think this is about to pop up, is on the back of your notes, you have the transcript. So everything that, her name is Sarah, right? Everything that Sarah says is on the back of your notes. And when she pauses, which she does a lot, I want you to put a P, like I have here, to notate in between either sentences. Sometimes you can see she pauses in the middle of a sentence. I want you to make sure you note it by writing a P on your paper every time you hear a pause. All right, here we go. Make sure you are ready to mark everything with a P for pause when you hear a pause.
About a year and a half ago, clips from this video appeared on every major news broadcast. It showed the rescue of a guy named Bo Bergdahl. He was the U.S. soldier who was captured by the Taliban and held captive for just shy of 5 years. The Taliban made the video. The first thing you see is a couple of guys in traditional Afghan clothes. They've got scarves on their heads or covering their faces, and they're holding machine guns. They're standing next to a silver pickup truck. The front hood is up. In the back seat of the truck, the door is open. A bare-headed figure is sitting with his knees up against the seat in front of him. The camera closes in, and you see this pale young man. And that's Bergdahl. His head is shaved. He looks sort of like a cult leader from a 70s movie. He can't keep his eyes open properly. They're bothering him. He keeps blinking and rubbing them. A wider shot shows that the scrubby, rocky hills all around the truck are dotted with other guys, Taliban, holding rifles or rocket-propelled grenades. One or two of the guys lean in to where Bergdahl is sitting, and they're talking to him. He's looking at their faces. One guy says something in Pashto, which is translated on screen as, "Don't come back to Afghanistan." What I've heard since is that the guy said, "Do not come back to Afghanistan. You will not get out alive." Black spots appear in the cloudy sky, and you see that they're planes or helicopters. One gets closer and closer. It's a Black Hawk. Then you see Bergdahl again. He's out of the truck now, looking up at the sky. His clothes are too big, billowy. Then, at about 6 minutes in, right after some cows wander onto the scene, the helicopter lands, dust flies. Bergdahl walks forward, flanked by 2 men, while 3 men from the helicopter, the U.S. Special Operations team, jog toward him. The 2 sides meet in the middle of the clearing, shake hands, like team captains right before the starting whistle. Bergdahl steps forward. The Americans put their hands on him, pull him towards the Black Hawk while they're walking backwards. They don't want to turn their backs on the Taliban just yet. Bergdahl is walking stiffly, lumbering almost. At the helicopter, they pat him down one more time, and then he's on board. They're up and away. It takes less than 2 minutes. And it's done. The video cuts off.
All right. So that is the video. Or really, it's a podcast. So, I'm going to come back to my PowerPoint. If you missed anything, feel free to go back, pause it, right, and listen. One thing you'll notice about Sarah's voice is that she actually rarely changes her pitch in the beginning of this entry. She normally changes her pitch quite a bit, but she did use a lot of pauses, so I want you to go through and mark those. When you're ready, Move on to the reflection questions that are at the bottom. 2 questions, I'll read them out loud. How did the narrator use pauses to make her story more powerful? Like I said, she didn't really change her pitch a lot, but her pauses really made it what it was. How? Why? Explain. Number 2, which pause did you find particularly powerful and why? You might have to go back in the video, but if there's something, you want to look for something that you're like, wow, that pause really made an impact on what she said next, or whatever it may be, right? Think of a pause that emphasized or made you listen a little bit closer to what she was saying next. After you're done with this reflection, you are going to actually make sure you have out your paper from yesterday. So you either had a glass of milk or you had Proud Red Rose. You should already have the entire thing marked up with how you're going to change your pitch and with what words you want to emphasize. But what I want you to do is go back through the entire story, and I want you to write P's everywhere you want to pause. Now, the exception here might be that you should definitely, and actually there is no exception, I take that back. At the end of every sentence, you should pause. So here's what you don't want to do. There was a boy who made a living with selling various objects door to door to pay for his school. He felt very hungry and felt he couldn't walk even a few steps. He decided to ask for food. Right? I'm reading those way too close together. Remember, after every sentence, you have to pause just a little bit, right? Anywhere between half a second and 3 seconds, depending on how much you want to emphasize what you just said. So go through, mark up every place you're going to pause. That includes at the end of sentences. And I want you to practice out loud your pitch and your pausing and emphasizing those words. And when you're ready to move on, you can start the video, but you do need to get the whole thing marked up, and I want you to say it 2 times through, and then you can come back to the video. So please, at this point, take off your headphones. If I walk by and see you're on this slide and you have them on, I'm going to ask you very kindly to take them off. Thanks. Alright, so I am assuming you just got some good pausing and pitch practice. Something we're going to use next week that I want you to go ahead and get set up is an iHeartRadio account. This will allow you to listen to radio examples so you can actually figure out, like, what are some ways I could do my radio host speech. So you'll see here I have some notes, right? I want you to write down the username and password you're about to create. I'll show you how to do that. I want you to write down, then after you do this, I'll have you answer these questions. But right now I'm just going to stay here. So I'll get off this. So this is the website you need to go to. It's iHeartRadio.com/show. Let me show you around real quick. So you see, when you come to this space, you'll see some popular things that people listen to. But if you go down, you'll see there's a variety, right? Business, comedy, games, food, health, news, politics, paranormal, right? Science, spirituality, and even sports. These are all radio shows you can listen to, but you see when I click on one, and then I click on another one, it says in order to listen, I have to sign in, right? So you would need to go ahead and fill in your email, your password. Our zip code is 77026. I hope they will let you sign in. I know y'all are, I think, 2000 babies. I don't remember. I think you're, 2000 babies, 01. Put your year, and then click on male or female. I would unclick this. I don't think you want to receive email updates, but you do have to, of course, agree. And after you fill in these 2 things, you can click sign up. After you click sign up, you will then have access to listen to all of these. And you can see, actually I'll use this as an example. You can see The Herd. I think this is a show I think my husband listens to, or I thought he